old Jane Coolidge, 71-year-old Leanna Owen, 79-year-old Virginia Sorensen, 81-year-old Wilhelm Hospel, and 52-year-old Tamara Durand. More than 60 others sustained injuries ranging from broken bones to severe trauma. Brooks was arrested shortly after abandoning the vehicle and attempting to flee on foot. The attack was captured on multiple video angles, including live streams and cell phone footage from parade attendees. The contrast between the wholesome holiday event and sudden mass casualty shocked the nation. Brooks's extensive criminal history, including a recent release on bail for another violent offense just weeks earlier, sparked intense debate about bail reform policies. He was later convicted on 76 charges and sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. The Raleigh Christmas Parade accident. On November 19, 2022, the Raleigh Christmas Parade moved through downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, featuring dozens of floats, dance groups, and marching bands. Among the participants was CC & Company Dance Complex, a local studio with young dancers performing in the parade. 11-year-old Haley Brooks was part of the dance group, wearing her costume and moving alongside her teammates near the parade's conclusion. Around 10:15 a.m., a pickup truck towing one of the parade floats began experiencing mechanical problems near the intersection of Hillsborough Street and Boylan Avenue. The driver lost control of the vehicle as it approached the dance group. Witnesses reported the truck suddenly lurching forward and veering into the performers. Haley was struck by the truck and knocked to the pavement. Other dancers and parade participants screamed and scattered as the vehicle came to a stop. Emergency medical personnel responded immediately, providing aid to Haley at the scene before transporting her to WakeMed Hospital. Despite aggressive treatment, she died from her injuries. The parade was immediately canceled, and investigators began examining the truck's mechanical systems and the circumstances of the accident. Initial findings suggested brake failure or mechanical malfunction had caused the driver to lose control. Haley's death devastated her family, friends, and the Raleigh community. Her dance studio held memorial services, and hundreds attended vigils in her honor. Multiple lawsuits were filed against the city and parade organizers, alleging inadequate safety protocols and vehicle inspections. The city of Raleigh subsequently implemented stricter requirements for parade vehicles, including mandatory mechanical inspections, enhanced insurance requirements, and additional safety officers positioned along routes. The incident sparked broader discussions about parade safety standards nationwide. The Bluffton Christmas Parade tragedy. On December 7, 2019, the Bluffton Christmas Parade proceeded through the small town of Bluffton, South Carolina, with local families riding on decorated trailer floats pulled by trucks and tractors. 5-year-old Amir Frazier was riding on one of the floats with other children, waving to spectators lining the streets of the tight-knit community. The parade route wound through downtown Bluffton, with the float moving at typical parade speed of approximately 5 miles per hour. At approximately 1:30 p.m., near the intersection of Bridge Street and Calhoun Street, Amir somehow fell from the moving trailer. Before anyone could react, he landed directly in the path of the trailer's wheels. The driver was unaware of what had happened and continued forward, running over the child. Other parade participants immediately signaled for the driver to stop, and emergency responders rushed to Amir's aid. Paramedics transported Amir to a nearby hospital, but his injuries were too severe. He was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The parade was immediately halted, and Bluffton police began investigating the circumstances of the accident. Witnesses provided statements about what they had observed, though the exact reason for Amir's fall remained unclear. Investigators examined whether the trailer lacked proper safety railings or restraints. Amir's parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the town of Bluffton, alleging negligence in parade safety standards and inadequate oversight of float construction. The lawsuit claimed the town had failed to establish and enforce safety requirements for parade vehicles carrying children. The case highlighted the absence of uniform safety regulations for small-town parades across the country. Bluffton subsequently revised its parade policies, requiring safety inspections for all floats and mandatory safety railings on any vehicle carrying passengers. The Mount Juliet Christmas Parade Float Incident. On December 14, 2019, the Mount Juliet Christmas Parade was underway in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, featuring local families and organizations on festive floats moving through the city's downtown area. 7-year-old Rowan Frensley was riding on a float driven by his father, accompanied by other family members and friends. The parade proceeded along North Mount Juliet Road, with spectators waving from sidewalks and parking lots. At approximately 12:30 p.m., as the float moved through an intersection, Rowan fell from the trailer. His father, unaware of what had occurred behind him, continued driving forward. The trailer's wheels struck Rowan before anyone could alert the driver to stop. Other parade participants immediately began screaming and signaling, causing the father to brake and look back to discover what had happened. Emergency medical services arrived within minutes and began treating Rowan at the scene, but his injuries were catastrophic. He was transported to Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville, where medical teams worked to save him, but he was pronounced dead from severe trauma. The Wilson County Sheriff's Office launched an investigation into the accident, interviewing witnesses and examining the float's construction and safety features. The tragedy's particular horror stemmed from the fact that Rowan's own father had been driving the vehicle that killed him. The family's unimaginable grief was compounded by the public nature of the accident, which occurred in front of hundreds of parade spectators. Investigators determined the death was accidental, with no criminal charges filed. The incident prompted Mount Juliet and surrounding communities to implement stricter parade safety requirements, including mandatory safety meetings for all float drivers, requirements for spotters on each float, and prohibitions on children riding on certain types of trailer floats without proper restraints. The Citadel Mall Christmas Eve incident. On December 24, 2023, Citadel Mall in Colorado Springs, Colorado, was packed with last-minute Christmas Eve shoppers searching for final gifts and holiday items. Families moved through stores while retailers offered closing-hour discounts. The mall's festive decorations and holiday music created a celebratory atmosphere as people rushed to complete their shopping before stores closed for Christmas Day. Around 4:30 p.m., two groups inside the mall became involved in a confrontation near the food court area. The argument escalated rapidly, with members of both groups shouting and pushing each other. Witnesses reported the dispute appeared personal rather than shopping-related. Within moments, someone pulled out a firearm and shots were fired. Panicked shoppers dove behind kiosks and store counters, while others ran for exits. Multiple people were struck by gunfire during the exchange. One person died at the scene from their wounds, while several others sustained injuries and were transported to nearby hospitals. Colorado Springs Police Department officers arrived quickly, securing the area and beginning the process of evacuating the mall. Investigators worked to identify those involved in the shooting and determine what had sparked the violent confrontation. The shooting sent shockwaves through Colorado Springs, particularly given its timing on Christmas Eve when families were engaged in holiday traditions. Cell phone footage captured portions of the chaos, with videos of shoppers fleeing and the sound of gunfire circulating on social media. The incident highlighted ongoing concerns about violence in retail spaces during peak shopping periods. Citadel Mall subsequently increased security presence during major shopping days and implemented enhanced screening procedures at entrances. The Santa Line Incident. On December 21, 1971, Higbee's department store in downtown Cleveland, Ohio, was crowded with families waiting to see Santa Claus during the final days before Christmas. The store's elaborate Santa display had been a Cleveland tradition for decades, drawing hundreds of children each day. Parents and children stood in a long line that wound through the store's fourth floor, waiting their turn for photos with Santa. Around 2 p.m., two men in the Santa line became involved in an argument. The dispute's origins remain unclear, but witnesses reported the confrontation escalated quickly, with both men shouting and threatening each other. Other parents attempted to move their children away from the altercation. Suddenly, one of the men pulled out a knife and stabbed the other man, later identified as Jack Fitzpatrick, in the chest. Fitzpatrick collapsed to the floor as screaming parents grabbed their children and fled. Store security and Cleveland police responded immediately, but Fitzpatrick died from his wound before medical help could save him. The attacker was arrested at the scene and later charged with manslaughter. Among the witnesses to the violent death was a young boy named Terrence Howard, who decades later would become a well-known actor. Howard has spoken in interviews about how witnessing the Santa Line incident affected him psychologically. The incident became notorious in Cleveland history, often recounted as an example of how violence can intrude even into the most innocent settings. The juxtaposition of a Christmas tradition, children waiting to see Santa, with sudden lethal violence created a lasting impact on those present. The case received extensive local media coverage and became part of Cleveland's darker holiday lore, referenced in discussions of the city's history. The Covina Santa Suit Tragedy. On December 24, 2008, a family Christmas Eve party was underway at a home in Covina, California, a suburb of Los Angeles. Approximately 25 family members had gathered at the residence of Joseph and Alicia Ortega to celebrate the holiday with dinner, gifts, and conversation. Children played while adults prepared food and socialized. The festive gathering represented a typical family Christmas celebration. At approximately 11:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. When an 8-year-old girl answered the door, she found someone dressed in a full Santa Claus costume, standing on the porch. The man appeared to be delivering a gift. Before anyone realized what was happening, 45-year-old Bruce Pardo, the ex-husband of one of the partygoers, raised a handgun and began shooting. The little girl was struck first, with the bullet severely injuring her face. Pardo forced his way into the house and continued firing indiscriminately at the terrified party guests. He shot multiple. County sheriff publicly described the crime as demonic. a characterization that was repeated across national media coverage. The incident prompted discussions about whether delivery apps needed better safety protocols and customer vetting procedures to protect their workers from violent crimes. The Florida Pack Attack. On August 21, 2022, 61-year-old Pamela Jane Rock was working her regular mail delivery route for the United States Postal Service in Interlaken, Florida. Rock had been a USPS carrier for years and was well known in the community. During her route that afternoon, her mail delivery truck broke down, forcing her to continue deliveries on foot in the summer heat. As Rock was walking her route through a residential neighborhood, 5 dogs suddenly escaped from a fenced yard and spotted her. The pack immediately attacked. The dogs belonged to a nearby resident whose fence had failed to contain them. Rock fought desperately as the animals mauled her. Neighbors heard her screams and rushed to help. Several people tried to pull the dogs off, including the dog's owner. One neighbor even fired a gun into the air, attempting to scare the animals away. After a frantic struggle, bystanders finally managed to separate the dogs from Rock. She had sustained critical injuries across her body from the attack. Emergency responders arrived and immediately called for a medical helicopter. Rock was airlifted to a trauma center where doctors worked to stabilize her condition. Despite intensive medical care, Pamela Jane Rock died the next evening from her injuries. She was 61 years old. Animal control seized all 5 dogs, which were later euthanized. The incident sparked outrage in Florida and across the country. Rock's family began campaigning for stricter laws to hold negligent dog owners accountable. Their efforts led to proposed legislation, nicknamed the Pam Rock Act, which would impose harsher penalties on owners whose dogs kill or seriously injure postal workers and other delivery personnel. The heat stroke tragedy. On June 25, 2022, 24-year-old Esteban Chavez Jr. was working as a UPS delivery driver in Pasadena, California. It was the day after his 24th birthday. Temperatures in Southern California had climbed into the 90s, and Chavez was making his regular rounds delivering packages in the oppressive heat. Like most UPS delivery trucks, his vehicle had no air conditioning, forcing drivers to work in sweltering conditions during summer months. Witnesses reported seeing Chavez making deliveries throughout the morning and early afternoon as temperatures continued rising. By mid-afternoon, Chavez was showing signs of heat exhaustion. His movements became slower, and he appeared disoriented. Around 3 p.m., Chavez collapsed inside his delivery truck. Another driver discovered him unconscious in his vehicle shortly after. Emergency responders were called immediately and rushed Chavez to a nearby hospital. Despite rapid medical intervention, Esteban Chavez Jr. was pronounced dead soon after arrival. His family believed he died from heat stroke, though the official cause of death remained under investigation. Medical personnel noted clear signs of severe dehydration and heat exhaustion. The case received extensive media coverage and became a rallying point on social media, with many expressing shock that a young worker could die on the job from heat exposure. Public pressure following Chavez's death and similar heat-related incidents contributed to the UPS Teamsters Union's successful 2023 labor negotiations, which included new heat safety measures and eventually air conditioning in delivery trucks. The porch collapse. On November 27, 2021, 45-year-old William Billy Fields was working his evening shift as a pizza delivery driver for Pizza King in Connersville, Indiana. Fields had been delivering pizzas for nearly 30 years and was beloved in the community. Customers knew him by name, and he had become a fixture in the small Indiana town. That evening, Fields received an order and loaded the pizzas into his car for delivery. He drove to the customer's home, grabbed the order, and approached the front door. The house had a wooden front porch, a common feature in the area. As Fields stepped onto the porch carrying the pizzas, the structure suddenly gave way beneath him. The wooden porch collapsed completely, dropping Fields through the broken boards and debris. He became trapped under heavy wooden beams and other wreckage from the collapsed structure. The customer heard the crash and immediately called 911. Emergency responders arrived quickly and worked to extract Fields from the debris. They pulled him free and rushed him to a local hospital, but his injuries were severe. William Fields was pronounced dead from trauma sustained in the collapse. The community was devastated. Fields had been delivering pizzas in Connersville for 3 decades, and countless residents knew him personally. People magazine picked up the story, and news of the beloved local pizza delivery man dying on the job spread across social media. The falling tape measure. On November 6, 2014, 58-year-old Gary Anderson was working as a delivery driver in Jersey City, New Jersey. His job involved transporting construction materials to building sites around the city. That morning, Anderson received an assignment to deliver a load of sheetrock to a high-rise construction site in Jersey City. The building under construction was a 50-story tower with workers spread across multiple floors. Anderson arrived at the site around 9:30 a.m. and began the process of unloading his delivery. He was working on the ground level, coordinating with workers to distribute the construction materials. 50 floors above, a construction worker was using a tape measure while working on the building's upper level. At some point, the tape measure either fell or was dropped from the worker's tool belt. The small metal tool plummeted down the side of the 50-story building, accelerating as it fell. During its descent, the tape measure bounced off equipment and structural elements. At ground level, Gary Anderson was not wearing a hard hat. The falling tape measure struck him directly in the head with tremendous force after falling for 50 floors. The impact critically injured Anderson, causing severe head trauma. Co-workers immediately called for emergency medical assistance. Paramedics arrived and rushed Anderson to a nearby hospital where trauma surgeons attempted to treat his injuries. Despite their efforts, Gary Anderson died approximately 1 hour later from the head trauma. He was 58 years old. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration opened an investigation into the incident. The bizarre nature of the accident, that a common tool like a tape measure could fall and kill someone, captured worldwide attention. The story has been recounted in numerous YouTube videos about unbelievable accidents and workplace safety, underlining how a momentary lapse in safety protocol can have fatal consequences. The train crossing. On October 24, 2025, 24-year-old Dusty L. Souls was working as a UPS delivery driver in rural Hunt County, Texas. The young driver was operating a UPS box truck, making deliveries west of Greenville in an area with numerous railroad crossings. Around 11:30 a.m., Souls approached an ungated railroad crossing, one of many unmarked crossings common in rural Texas. The crossing had no gates, flashing lights, or other automated warning systems, only standard crossbuck signs. As Souls drove her truck toward the tracks, a freight train was approaching on the line. For reasons that remain under investigation, Souls failed to yield at the crossing. Her UPS truck entered the tracks directly into the path of the oncoming freight train. The locomotive struck the box truck with devastating force. The impact tore the vehicle apart and sent debris flying. The collision caused the truck to burst into flames immediately. The train's engineer applied emergency brakes, but stopping a loaded freight train requires considerable distance. By the time the train came to a complete stop, the UPS truck had been completely destroyed. Emergency responders arrived to find the charred, mangled remains of the delivery truck scattered along the railroad tracks. Dusty Souls died instantly from the impact. She was 24 years old. Photographs from the scene showed the truck's burned wreckage and the severity of the collision. Local authorities and railroad investigators examined the crash site to determine exactly what happened. UPS issued a statement expressing condolences to Souls' family. Transportation safety advocates pointed to the case as an example of why more crossings need automated warning systems to prevent similar tragedies. The van